She said it like a secret, not a compliment, a confession. "You're strong," she murmured, fingers still resting on my forearm, as if she hadn't decided whether to let go. Then that smile, slow, knowing, almost playful. But her eyes stayed serious, studying me like she was remembering something she shouldn't. I didn't know what to say. The air between us felt thick, like the kind of silence that only exists when two people are both pretending they're not thinking the same thing. Her name was Elena. She was my neighbor's sister, visiting for a few weeks, helping repaint the old house across from mine. Mid-40s, maybe, but she carried herself like time hadn't taken anything from her. Every movement was deliberate. The way she tucked her hair behind her ear before speaking, the quiet pauses she left hanging, the way she seemed to listen harder than anyone else did. When I first met her, she was kneeling in the garden, wrists streaked with paint, humming softly under her breath. I remember thinking she looked like someone who'd lived through a lot, but instead of showing it, she wore it lightly, like it made her stronger. I was supposed to just drop off a drill. My brother had lent it to her, but she invited me in, offered coffee, said it'd be rude not to. The smell of paint and roasted beans filled the kitchen, earthy, warm, familiar. Sunlight cut through the half-open blinds, striping her arm with gold. She leaned against the counter, holding her mug with both hands, sleeves pushed to her elbows. I noticed the faint freckle near her wrist, the kind of thing no one else probably had. "So you're Noah," she said, like she already knew me. I nodded. "And you're the one who convinced my brother to repaint in the middle of winter." She laughed, that low, honest kind of laugh that doesn't need volume to be felt. "Someone had to," she said. "He's been saying he'd do it for 3 years." Her tone was teasing, but underneath it, something else. A small ache, or maybe nostalgia. We talked about nothing for a while. Weather, coffee, colors that didn't look good on walls. But the pauses started stretching, just enough to make me aware of how close we were standing. At one point, she reached for the sugar, and her fingers brushed mine. Not by accident, or maybe it was, but neither of us pulled away right away. I looked at her hand, then her face. She didn't move, just met my eyes with this unreadable calm. And for a second, it felt like the world had gone completely still. Her perfume was faint, like cedar and salt air. She smelled like the ocean after rain. Then came the moment that stuck, the one I kept replaying later over and over. I'd picked up the paint can for her, carried it outside. She followed, standing close behind as I set it down. When I straightened, she put a hand lightly on my arm, just enough pressure to stop me. "You're strong," she said quietly, almost to herself. Her thumb lingered for half a heartbeat. Then that smile again, half challenge, half invitation. And before I could think, before I could ask what she meant, the front door opened. Her brother's voice echoed down the hall. Elena stepped back, eyes flicking toward the door, but not before I caught it. That tiny flash of disappointment, gone as quickly as it appeared. She smoothed her sleeve, pretending nothing had happened. But I couldn't stop thinking. She'd said, "You're strong?" and looked at me like she wanted to see what else I might be. For the next few days, I told myself it didn't mean anything. A hand on my arm. A look that lasted too long. A word said too softly. People imagine things when they want to. But every morning, I found a reason to pass by that house. Bringing tools, checking in, pretending to help. And every time, Elena was there, hair pulled back messily, music playing low from her phone, paint on her wrists again. She always smiled when she saw me. Not the polite kind. The other kind, the one that said she remembered too. It started raining that week. One of those steady coastal rains that made everything feel smaller and closer. She was alone on the porch when I walked up, sitting cross-legged on an old chair, a mug between her hands. "You shouldn't be out in this," I said. "Maybe I like the sound," she replied, eyes on the rain. I leaned against the railing beside her, close enough to smell the damp wood, the faint trace of her perfume still there under it. She spoke first. "You remind me of someone," she said. "When I was your age." I waited, but she didn't finish. She told me later, slowly, that she'd been married once. 10 years ago. Teacher, she said. Kind man, good man. Just quiet. We stopped reaching for each other, I think, she said. And then it was over. Her voice didn't crack. It just faded. I didn't ask for more. But something about that confession stayed with me. The way she said it without bitterness, just exhaustion. I wanted to ask if she ever missed being held, but the question felt too raw, too obvious. So I said nothing. We painted in silence that afternoon. Her brother had gone out for supplies, leaving us with the sound of brushes scraping against the walls and rain hitting the windows. At one point, she reached for the roller I was holding. Her fingers grazed mine again, light but deliberate this time. You always do that, I said quietly. She looked up. Do what? Touch things when you talk. Even when you don't need to. Her hand froze halfway, then dropped to her side. Old habit, she murmured. I used to teach art classes. You learn to use your hands to keep people's attention. She smiled faintly, but didn't look at me. You're good at it, I said before I could stop myself. That time she did look. And for a heartbeat, neither of us pretended anymore. The rain eased to a soft drizzle. The room smelled of wet paint and something warmer. Her skin, maybe, or the tension that had stopped feeling harmless. When she reached up to fix a corner of tape near the window, I stepped behind her to hold it steady. My hand brushed her shoulder. Just a touch, just long enough to feel the heat through her shirt. She didn't move. Thanks, she said, voice barely above a whisper. But her hand trembled when she lowered it. We didn't talk after that. Not about what happened. We just kept painting the wall the same pale blue. Slow, careful strokes, pretending we weren't both holding our breath. And when the light finally started to fade, she stood beside me, close enough that her sleeve brushed mine. Neither of us stepped back. The silence between us wasn't empty anymore. It was full of everything we hadn't said yet. The next few days blurred. We both tried to act normal, short nods, polite greetings, all the right distance between words. But that careful space we'd built kept slipping. One of us would say something too soft, look too long, stand too close. The line was gone, and neither of us knew who had erased it. That afternoon, her brother asked me to help move furniture into the living room. Elena was already there, barefoot on the tarp, sleeves rolled up, hair pinned messily. She looked tired but alive. Paint smudged on her cheek like she hadn't noticed. She smiled when I walked in, that small, secret smile she saved just for me. We worked quietly. Music played low from her phone, some old song with too much longing in it. When she reached for a chair, I moved at the same time. Our hands brushed again, then stayed there, this time on purpose. I felt her fingers tense before she pulled away. Sorry, she said, but the word didn't sound like regret. It sounded like warning. Her brother's phone rang in the other room, his voice fading down the hall. We were alone again. The silence came quick, heavy, electric. Elena stood near the window, the late light falling across her neck and shoulders. She was breathing slower, more carefully, like she was aware of every inch between us. I shouldn't let you help so much, she said, half turning. People will start talking. I don't care, I said before I could think. She did. I saw it in the way her mouth tightened. You should, she said. You're young. This would... She stopped, shaking her head. It would make you look foolish. I took a step closer. And you, her breath caught. It would make me look worse. The air felt too still. I could hear her heartbeat, or maybe it was mine. She looked up, and for a second, the hesitation in her eyes slipped. There was something raw there, unguarded, like she'd been trying not to want anything for a long time. I wanted to touch her, just to see if she'd still feel the same, if her skin would still hum the way it did that day in the rain. I moved closer, slow enough to stop if she wanted me to. She didn't. Her hand lifted slightly, like she might reach for me too, but her phone buzzed on the table. The sound cracked the moment open. We both froze. Her brother's name flashed on the screen. She stepped back, brushing her hair from her face. You should go, she said quietly. I didn't move. Elena. Her eyes softened, then hardened again. Please. I left. But halfway down the steps, I heard her call my name. I turned. She stood in the doorway, rain light behind her, bare feet on the floor. She didn't speak, just looked at me like she wanted to, then reached for the door, closed halfway. Then, through the small crack, her voice, barely a whisper, "Don't come tomorrow." And yet, the way she said it, trembling, unsteady, sounded more like come anyway that I didn't listen. Of course I didn't. The next day, I walked past her porch again, telling myself I was just checking the mail, just passing by. But I knew I was lying before my foot hit the first step. The house was quiet. Her brother's car was gone. Elena stood by the window, pulling the curtains closed. She froze when she saw me. One hand still on the fabric, eyes wide, uncertain. Then something changed in her face. The surprise didn't fade. It softened, like she was too tired to pretend anymore. "You shouldn't be here," she said. "I know." She waited for me to leave. I didn't. Inside, the air smelled like rain and turpentine, the kind of scent that lingers on skin. She crossed her arms, but it didn't look like defense. More like she was holding herself together. "I told you not to come," she said again, quieter this time. "You did. Then why are you—" "I couldn't stop thinking about you," I said. "I tried." The words hung there, heavy, honest. Elena looked at the floor. Her hand gripped the edge of the table, knuckles pale. "You shouldn't say that. But it's true." When she finally met my eyes, I saw it. Not anger, not shock, just relief. She took a step closer, then another. "Do you have any idea what you're doing?" she whispered. I almost smiled. No, that made her laugh. Breathless, quiet, too close. The sound broke whatever distance we had left. She reached up like she was going to push my hair back, but stopped halfway. Her fingers hovered near my temple, trembling. I caught her wrist gently. "You can," I said. Her breath hitched, and then she did, slowly, brushing the hair from my face, her fingers tracing down to my jaw. Neither of us spoke. The silence was louder than anything else. I could feel the warmth of her hand, the faint shake in her fingers. She leaned in slightly, her forehead almost touching mine. "This is wrong," she said, voice breaking. "Then stop," I whispered. Her lips parted, a soft breath against my mouth, but she didn't move away. "I can't," she said. I wanted to close the distance, to just end the waiting, the pretending. But before I could, she pressed her palm flat against my chest, not to push me away, just to feel that I was real. Her heartbeat and mine felt synced, too fast, too close. Then headlights swept across the window, her brother's car pulling in. Elena stepped back so fast the chair behind her scraped the floor. Her voice was low, urgent. "Go. Please, Noah." I didn't move at first. She grabbed my hand, eyes wide now. Not with fear, but with something closer to desperation. "Go," she whispered again. "Before I can't make you." Her fingers lingered in mine a second longer, warm, trembling, before she let go. I slipped out the back door just as I heard the front one open. And as I stood outside in the rain, heart still racing, I realized something had changed. Whatever this was, it wasn't curiosity anymore. It was the edge of something that could break us both. I didn't see her for 2 days. The lights in her house stayed off, the curtains drawn. I tried not to look, tried not to count the hours. On the third evening, I saw her car wasn't there. I almost felt relieved, until her brother came over, holding a mug and a question in his eyes. "You and Elena," he said, scratching the back of his neck. "You've been spending a lot of time together." It wasn't an accusation. It was confusion, maybe concern. I forced a smile. "She needed help painting, that's all." He nodded, slow, but didn't look convinced. "She told me she was taking a break, said she was tired, needed some space." He left after that, but something in my chest didn't settle. The next morning, I found her in the backyard, alone, sitting on the steps, phone in her hand, unread messages lighting the screen. She didn't look up when I walked over. "You disappeared," I said. I told you not to come. You didn't mean it. Her laugh was dry. You think you know what I mean? She finally looked at me. Her eyes red, makeup smudged from the night before. She looked undone. Not in the way that made her less beautiful, in the way that made her real. I told him, she said softly. About you. About us. The words hit like a door slamming shut. There's no us, she added quickly, but her voice cracked halfway through. I sat beside her, not touching. The silence stretched long enough to make the morning feel colder. Why'd you tell him? I asked. Because he asked, she said. And I was tired of lying. She rubbed her hands together, the motion restless, anxious. He thinks you're... She stopped. What? Too young. Too easily hurt. I almost laughed, but the sound never came out. So what? I said. You agree with him? She looked at me then, really looked, and it was worse than hearing yes. Her fingers brushed her temple, like she was trying to press something away. You think this is simple, she said. But it's not just about me wanting you. The word wanting hung between us, raw and unguarded. It's about what happens after, she whispered. When it stops feeling exciting and starts feeling wrong. I moved closer, not touching her but close enough that she could feel it. It doesn't feel wrong now. Her breath trembled. That's the problem. She stood, brushing past me to go inside, but I caught her wrist, just enough to make her stop. Then tell me to go, I said, and mean it this time. She didn't turn around, just stood there, her hand in mine, pulse fluttering against my fingers. I can't, she said. Then quieter. Not yet. When she finally walked inside, she left the door open. Rain spilling across the threshold, wind curling through the hallway. Felt like an invitation, or a warning. Either way, I followed. The air inside was warmer than outside, but it didn't feel safe. The door creaked behind me, closing slow, soft, like it was agreeing to something neither of us had said out loud. Elena stood by the table, her back half turned. She didn't move when she heard the door click. You shouldn't be here, she whispered. I know. Her shoulders rose, then fell. Then why are you? Because you left it open. That made her turn. Her eyes caught the dim light. Tired, scared, but still holding that same pull that had followed me for weeks. I didn't mean to, she said. Yeah, I said quietly. You did. She exhaled sharply, as if she'd been holding her breath since I walked in. I told my brother it was nothing, she said. That you were just helping. That I made it up. Her voice cracked. But it wasn't nothing, was it? I shook my head. No, she laughed once, without humor. You have no idea what this costs me. Then don't pay for it alone. She stepped forward before she realized she had. The space between us shrank until I could feel the heat coming off her skin, the faint tremor in her breath. Her hands hovered near my chest, not touching, just shaking slightly, like they wanted to but didn't trust themselves. Noah, she said softly, my name almost breaking in her mouth. You're making this harder. Then stop me. I can't. She reached up, brushing my jaw with her fingertips. Hesitant, tracing the edge like she was memorizing it. I could feel her pulse against my throat, could smell the faint salt of her skin, the rain still clinging to her hair. We didn't move closer. Not yet. The air between us was too full of everything we tried to hide, of every moment that almost happened. You'll hate me for this, she whispered. I won't. Yes, you will. When it's quiet again. When you realize how much older I am. How small this town is. How everyone looks at me. I took her hand, pressed it flat against my chest. Let them look. Her breath trembled. Half a sigh, half a surrender. She leaned in then, not all the way, just enough for her forehead to rest against mine. The world tilted. The air thinned. This can't last, she said. Maybe it doesn't have to. Her lips parted. I could feel her words before she said them. A whisper against my skin. I want to stop, she said. But I don't want to forget. I closed my eyes. Then don't. We didn't kiss. Not exactly, but something passed between us. A breath, a heartbeat, a choice made in silence. When she finally stepped back, I understood what she'd meant from the beginning. It wasn't about being strong. It was about holding something fragile and not breaking it. It rained again that night. Not hard, just steady, the kind of rain that sounds like time slowing down. I sat on my porch, watching the streetlights blur in the puddles, thinking about everything that had almost happened. I didn't expect her to come, but then her door opened. Elena stepped out wearing his old sweater, sleeves falling past her wrists. She crossed the street without an umbrella, hands in her pockets, face unreadable. When she stopped in front of me, I could see the water dripping from her hair, the faint shiver in her shoulders. "You're soaked," I said, standing. "I know. You shouldn't." "Stop saying that," she cut in, smiling for the first time in days. "You always tell me what I shouldn't do." She stepped closer, close enough that I could feel the cold from her clothes, the warmth beneath it. "I'm tired of being careful," she said softly. We didn't talk for a while. We didn't have to. I took her hand, tentative at first, expecting her to pull away. She didn't. Her fingers fit against mine, damp and trembling. When she finally looked up, her eyes were steady. "I was scared," she said. "Not of you, of me, of what people would say, of how easy it would be to lose myself in something that can't last. And now," she hesitated, searching for words, then just shook her head. "Now I don't care how long it lasts. I just don't want to lie about it." I squeezed her hand. "Then we won't." We went inside, still holding on to each other. The house smelled like paint again. Dry now, finished, no longer a work in progress. She sat on the couch, pulled her knees up, motioned for me to sit beside her. It wasn't dramatic. No music, no big declarations. Just quiet, the kind that feels right after too much noise. Her head rested against my shoulder. My hand brushed her hair back, still damp. She turned slightly, eyes half closed, a small smile forming as if she finally allowed herself to relax. "You know what your brother said?" I murmured. She groaned. "Do I want to?" "He told me you always start things you're afraid to finish." She laughed under her breath. "He's not wrong. So finish this one," I said. She tilted her head toward me, just enough that our foreheads touched. I think I just did. We stayed like that for a long time. No promises, no pretending it would be easy. Just warmth, steady and real, in a world that had stopped rushing for once. Outside, the rain slowed. Inside, she reached for my hand again, and this time, didn't let go. "Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?"